There's something magical about the hush of night, when the world grows still and stories come alive under the silver glow of the moon. Picture this, a crackling fire, its flames casting flickering shadows, and a circle of eager travelers leaning in as a lone storyteller begins to weave a tale older than time itself. Tonight, we gather like those wanderers of old, drawn together by the promise of forgotten legends from the heart of Middle-earth. Whether you're listening under the midnight sky or the first light of dawn, we'd love to know where in the world are you joining us from, and what hour has the clock struck for you. Let us know in the comments below, because every voice around this fire adds to the magic. The air hums with anticipation, thick with the scent of pine and earth, as the storyteller's voice drops to a whisper. Long ago, they begin. In the hidden corners of Middle-earth, an artifact was lost, a relic so powerful it could reshape the fate of kingdoms. Can you feel it? That shiver of curiosity, that pull toward the unknown. This isn't just a story. It's a journey into the shadows where danger lurks and courage is the only light that can guide you. The tales we'll uncover tonight aren't mere myths. They're echoes of a world where every choice carries weight, where heroes are forged in the darkest hours, and where the line between legend and truth blurs like mist over ancient ruins. So settle in, traveler. Let the fire warm you as we step into a realm of mystery and wonder, where every whisper holds a secret and every shadow hides a story waiting to be told. This is more than a tale. It's an invitation to lose yourself in the grandeur of Middle-earth, to feel the weight of its history, and to discover the threads of fate that bind us all. The night is young, and the stories are just beginning. Are you ready to listen? The brittle parchment crackles in Elara's grip as she traces the faded ink with her fingertips. Each stroke of the ancient script, a whisper from a time long past. The ruins of Annúminas groan around her, their weathered stones holding secrets older than the kingdoms of men. And there, hidden beneath layers of dust and time, the truth reveals itself. The Star of Elendil, a beacon of hope, lost to legend, might still lie waiting in some forgotten corner of Middle-earth. Her breath catches. This isn't just a scholar's discovery, it's a summons. The artifact's power could mend the fractures in lands where shadows creep, where villages huddle under skies that no longer remember starlight. But power like this never goes unnoticed. Somewhere beyond the crumbling arches, beyond the sigh of the wind through empty halls, something stirs, a rustle of cloth, a footfall too careful to be accidental. Elara doesn't see them yet, but they've seen her. She rolls the scroll with trembling hands, tucking it into her satchel like a secret too heavy to carry alone. The weight of it changes everything. Her quiet life among books and candlelight is already crumbling behind her, replaced by a road that winds into the unknown. Every scholar knows the tales how the star once lit the way for kings, how its radiance could drive back the creeping dark, but tales rarely mention the cost, or the ones who would twist its light into something terrible. Elara adjusts the strap of her pack, fingers brushing the dagger at her belt, a gift from a mentor who warned her that knowledge is never harmless. The ruins watch her go, their silence a reminder. Some choices can't be unmade. The first mile is the easiest. The sun still slants gold through the trees, and the path ahead is clear. But as dusk settles, so does the feeling the prickle at the back of her neck, the sense that the shadows between the trees are just a little too deep. She tells herself it's only the wind that sends leaves skittering across the road, only an owl's cry that echoes a little too close. But when she glances over her shoulder, the road behind her is empty in a way that feels deliberate. As if the world itself is holding its breath, Elara quickens her step. She doesn't know yet who follows or why, but she knows this. The star's light is a promise. And promises have a way of drawing both the desperate and the damned. The road to Bree winds like a serpent through the rolling hills, its dirt packed hard by countless travelers before her. Elara keeps her hood drawn low, not against the cold, though the evening air carries a bite, but against prying eyes. Every rustle in the underbrush sets her teeth on edge. That's when she spots him, a figure leaning against a gnarled oak, his cloak the color of twilight, his fingers absently tracing the hilt of his sword. Halvar. She's heard the name whispered in taverns, a ranger who walks the wild places, a man who knows the price of secrets. His gaze locks onto hers, and she feels it like a blade's edge, assessing, unreadable. "You're being followed," he says, so casually it takes her a breath to register the words. Her hand flies to her satchel, to the scroll hidden within. Halvar doesn't smile. "Not by me." The warning hangs between them, taut as a bowstring. She should walk away. Every instinct screams it, but then the shadows at the edge of the road ripple. Too fast, too deliberate. The attack comes in a blur of snarled cloth and glinting steel. Elara barely draws her dagger before Halvar's sword flashes, parrying a strike meant for her spine. They fight back to back, the rhythm of their movements falling into sync as if they've battled together for years. Her breath comes ragged, her muscles burn. These aren't common bandits. Their attackers move like smoke, their faces obscured by something darker than night. When the last foe melts into the trees, Halvar doesn't sheathe his blade. He watches the empty road, his voice low. "They'll be back." Elara wipes sweat from her brow, her pulse still hammering. "Who are they?" The ranger's eyes flick to her satchel, then to the horizon where the first stars prick the sky. "Hunters," he says, "and you've just become the hunted." The words settle over her like a weight. She thought the scroll was her burden alone, but Halvar's presence, his skill, his knowing glance changes everything. This isn't just about an artifact in a moor. It's about who else wants it, and what they'll do to claim it. The road ahead stretches into gathering dark. Somewhere beyond it lies Bree, its lanterns a promise of fleeting safety. But as they step forward together, Halvar's final whisper lingers in the air between them, colder than the wind. This hunt has only just begun. The fire sputters low, its embers painting Halvar's face in flickering crimson as he stares into the dark beyond Weathertop's broken towers. The wind doesn't sound right here. It carries voices, half-formed words in a language that prickles the back of Elara's neck like spider's silk. She catches fragments, syllables that twist away before she can grasp them, as if the ruins themselves are whispering secrets meant to stay buried. Halvar's hand tightens around his sword hilt. "They're closer than I thought," he murmurs, and the way his voice barely carries tells her everything. These aren't living foes, they're echoes, hungry ones. Elara pulls her cloak tighter. "You've faced them before. It isn't a question. The ranger's silence is answer enough. When he finally speaks, his words are measured, each one weighted with memory. A sorcerer once bound them to his service. They were his eyes in the dark, his knives in the shadows. When he fell, they should have faded with him. His gaze flicks to the starless sky. Someone's calling them back. The implication settles between them like frost. The Star of Elendil isn't just a relic. It's a key, and there are those who would turn its light to open doors better left sealed. A gust snatches the breath from Elara's lips, and for a heartbeat, the whispers sharpen into something almost coherent. A name, maybe, or a curse. Her fingers find the scroll in her satchel, its edges rough against her skin. Doubt coils in her chest. What if she's leading them all into a trap? What if the very thing meant to mend the world becomes its undoing? Halvar reads the hesitation in her face. He doesn't offer empty comfort. Instead, he tosses another branch onto the fire, sending sparks spiraling into the night. Turn back now, and they'll hunt you anyway, he says simply. At least this way, we choose the ground. The truth of it stings. There's no safety in retreat, not in a moor. The creatures out there, whatever they are, have already caught their scent. Elara exhales, watching her breath mist in the cold air. The star's pull is stronger than fear, stronger than the dread pooling in her stomach. Somewhere ahead, buried in the labyrinth of Middle-earth's oldest secrets, lies the answer. The first step toward dawn, Halvar rises, his silhouette cutting a sharp line against the ruins. Dawn's too far off, he says, as if plucking the thought from her mind. We move now, while the dark still favors us. He offers a hand, not to help her up, but to pull her closer to the firelight. His palm is calloused, warm. Stay close, and don't listen to the whispers. The path ahead is swallowed by shadow, the wind keening through weather tops, shattered stones like a dirge. Elara squares her shoulders. The artifact's light calls to her, a thread of hope woven through the gathering dark. But as they step beyond the fire's reach, the whispers rise again, louder now, almost gleeful. They've been waiting, and they're not alone. The stone steps spiral downward, like the coils of some great sleeping serpent, their edges worn smooth by centuries of dripping water and unseen footsteps. Elara's torch gutters in the damp air, casting long shadows that twist along the cavern walls, shadows that seem to move just a heartbeat too slow, as if the darkness itself is watching. The runes etched into the rock pulse with a faint blue light, their glow waxing and waning like a slow, steady breath. Halvar presses a hand against the nearest one, his palm hovering over the ancient script. They are not just markings, he murmurs. They're warnings. Elara unrolls the scroll with care, her fingers tracing the ink symbols that mirror the ones on the walls. The parchment trembles in her grip, not from fear, but from the hum of power, thrumming through the stone beneath their feet. The path twists like a liar's tongue. She reads aloud, her voice echoing down the tunnel. Step true, or be swallowed by the mountain's hunger. A draft snakes past them, carrying the scent of wet earth and something older, sharper, metal. The air tastes like a blade left too long in the rain. The first trap triggers with a click so soft, it might have been a pebble dislodged by a rat. Halvar yanks Elara backward, just as a section of the floor pivots, revealing a yawning pit lined with jagged spikes. Her heart hammers against her ribs, but she doesn't pull away. Instead, she grips his forearm, her nails biting into his sleeve. "Together," she says. It's not a plea, it's a pact. The caverns test them at every turn. Pressure plates hidden beneath moss. Runes that flare crimson when misread, summoning gusts of scalding steam. Once, the entire tunnel seems to exhale, the walls shuddering inward before Halvar braces his back against one side, boots scraping for purchase, as Elara wedges her staff against the other. Their eyes lock in the dim light, sweat gleaming on both their brows. No words pass between them, none are needed. Then comes the bridge, a slender arch of stone, spanning a chasm so deep the torchlight doesn't reach the bottom. The runes here are different, not guidance, but a challenge. Elara kneels, her voice steady as she translates. The way forward is the way undone. Trust the fall. Halvar's jaw tightens. That's not a riddle, that's a death sentence. But Elara is already stepping onto the bridge, her arms outstretched for balance. Halfway across, the stone crumbles beneath her. Halvar moves without thinking. His hand closes around her wrist as she drops, his other arm wrapping around a protruding rock. For a breathless moment, they hang suspended over the abyss, her weight nearly pulling them both into the dark. Then Elara's free hand finds a hold, her fingers clawing into the rock face. Together, they haul themselves onto the far ledge, gasping. The scroll lies where it fell, just out of reach, but the runes on the opposite wall now blaze gold, forming an arrow pointing deeper into the mountain. Halvar lets out a ragged laugh. "Trust the fall," he repeats, shaking his head. Elara meets his gaze, her own lips curving despite the terror still coiled in her chest. The caverns have stripped them raw, peeled back every layer of doubt and pretense. What's left is something sharper, something like trust. The path ahead slopes downward, the air growing thick with the scent of ozone and old magic. The stars' pull is stronger now, a silent song vibrating in their bones. But the deeper they go, the louder the whispers grow. Not from the walls this time, but from the dark behind them. Something has awakened, and it's following their trail. The torchlight wavers as the hooded figure steps from the shadows, the flickering glow catching the edge of a familiar scar, one Halvar knows too well. Garin, he breathes, the name like ash on his tongue. The man who once fought beside him, who shared his fire and his vows, now stands with a blade drawn and eyes empty of anything but cold purpose. Elara feels the shift before she sees it, the way Halvar's shoulders tense, the almost imperceptible tremor in his grip on his sword. This isn't just an enemy. This is a ghost. Garin's smile is a knife's edge. You always did have a habit of stumbling into places you don't belong. His voice is smooth, almost amused, but the cavern seems to recoil at the sound. Behind him, the tunnels whisper with movement, figures shifting in the dark, their breaths syncopated like a predator's heartbeat. Halvar doesn't lower his weapon. You sold yourself to him. The accusation hangs between them, raw and ragged. Elara's pulse races. She's heard stories of the sorcerer, how he twists loyalty into chains, how his promises are poison wrapped in silk. But it's the flicker of guilt in Halvar's eyes that chills her more than the circling shadows. Garin tilts his head, studying her with a curiosity that feels like a violation. Ah, the scholar. He takes a step closer, and the torchlight catches the amulet at his throat, a twisted thing, pulsing with a light that doesn't belong in this world. Tell me, does he ever mention how many of us he left to die? The words land like a blow. Halvar's jaw clenches, but he doesn't deny it. Elara's mind races. She's seen the ranger's skill, his courage, but courage doesn't erase the past. And right now, the past is standing between them and the way out. Garen's smile widens. The sorcerer offers more than empty oaths. Halvar, power, clarity. No more running from what you are. The cavern feels smaller suddenly, the walls pressing in. Elara's fingers brush the dagger at her belt, her gaze darting between the two men. Trust is a fragile thing, and Halvar's silence is a crack widening beneath her feet. But then his voice cuts through the tension, low and rough. You're wrong. He meets Garen's gaze unflinching. I run toward it now. The fight erupts in a blur of steel and snarls. Halvar moves like a storm, his strikes precise, furious. But Garen matches him, his movements slick with borrowed power. Elara ducks a swipe from one of the shadowed figures, her dagger finding flesh. The scent of blood mingles with the damp earth, metallic and sharp. She doesn't have time to think, only act until a hand closes around her wrist, yanking her back. Halvar, his breath is ragged, his grip iron. The bridge, he gasps. Now, she doesn't hesitate. They sprint for the narrow stone arch, their pursuers close behind. Halfway across, the world tilts. Garen's laughter rings out, and the bridge shudders, cracks spider webbing through the ancient rock. Elara's foot slips, but Halvar hauls her forward, his grip the only thing between her and the abyss. They crash onto the far ledge as the bridge collapses into the void, the echoes of its fall swallowed by the dark. Silence. Then, from the other side, Garen's voice, soft as a curse. You can't outrun him forever. Halvar doesn't answer. He doesn't need to. The look he shares with Elara is answer enough. A pact forged in the space between trust and doubt. The caverns have tested them, and the road ahead promises worse. But for now, they are alive, and the star's light still beckons, somewhere beyond the betrayal and the blood. The cavern walls fall away, revealing a chamber so vast, the torchlight barely grazes its edges. At its center, wreathed in mist that coils like living smoke, the sorcerer waits not in flesh, but in spectral form, his outline shimmering like heat haze over desert sands. His voice slithers through the air, smooth as silk over broken glass. Elara of the scrolls, he murmurs, and her name in his mouth feels like a brand. How far you've come for a relic that cannot give you what you truly seek. The Star of Elendil pulses in her satchel, its weight suddenly hotter, heavier. The sorcerer's gaze, though he has no eyes, only hollows that drink the light, locks onto it. You wish to mend the world, he continues, drifting closer. The mist parts before him, forming shapes, villages bathed in golden light, children laughing under unbroken skies, wounds of the land knitting themselves whole. Imagine what you could do with true power, not just healing, transformation. His whisper curls around her, insistent as a lover's touch. The star is but a tool. I can teach you to wield it as its makers never dared. Halvar's hand grips her elbow, his fingers digging in like anchors. Don't, he growls. The word is raw, stripped bare. She's heard that tone before, in the voices of men who have held dying friends, who have learned too late the price of a sorcerer's gifts. But the visions won't fade. The sorcerer's promises take root in her mind, thorned and sweet. What if the whispers were right? What if the star's light could be sharpened, not just to heal, but to cut away the rot festering in the world? Her fingers twitch toward the satchel. The sorcerer smiles, or something like it. All I ask is a glimpse, he purrs, a moment to show you the path your scholar's books never mapped. His spectral hand extends, palm upturned. The air between them hums, thick with the scent of lightning and myrrh. Halvar's blade sings as it clears its sheath, its edge slicing through the mist. Her answer is no. The chamber shudders, the visions shatter like glass. The sorcerer's form distorts, his pleasant mask slipping to reveal something older, hungrier. You always did lack imagination, Ranger, he hisses. The temperature plummets, frost flowers across the stone at their feet. But the scholar, she understands. Knowledge is never free, dear one, and the price. His laughter is the scrape of bone on stone. You've already begun to pay it. Elara's breath comes fast. The star's pull is a drumbeat in her veins, insistent, intoxicating. Halvar steps between them, his sword a line drawn in the dark. Walk away, he tells the sorcerer. Tells her, the silence stretches, taut as a noose. Then, with a sound like a sigh, the sorcerer dissolves, but his voice lingers, woven into the very air. When you change your mind, child of ink and dust. You need only call. The chamber is empty again. The torchlight steadies, but the choice hangs between them, heavier than any artifact. Halvar doesn't speak. He doesn't have to. The look he gives her is a question, a plea, a warning all at once. Some doors, once opened, cannot be closed, and the star in her satchel burns hotter still. The caverns groan like a dying beast as they run, stones crashing behind them in a deafening roar. Elara's lungs burn, her boots slipping on damp rock, but Halvar's grip on her wrist never falters. A final leap, then sunlight, sudden and blinding, sears their vision as they tumble onto moss and loose shale. The mountain exhales behind them, the entrance sealing itself with a thunderous shudder. But the silence that follows is worse. No birdsong, no wind, only the distant, mocking echo of the sorcerer's laughter, carried on air that tastes too sweet, too still. Dawn paints the eastern sky in hues of rose and gold, a cruel contrast to the dread settling in Elara's bones. Halvar scans the tree line, his sword still drawn. They'll have sent the hounds, he mutters, wiping sweat and grit from his brow. She doesn't ask what that means. The way his knuckles whiten around the hilt tells her enough. They move swift as shadows, skirting the edge of the troll shaws where the undergrowth grows thick enough to hide their trail. Every snapped twig, every rustle in the ferns sets Elara's teeth on edge. The star's weight in her satchel feels heavier now, its presence pulsing like a second heartbeat. She catches Halvar glancing at it, his expression unreadable. You knew, she whispers when they pause to drink from a shallow stream. About Garen, about the others. His throat works as he swallows, water dripping from his chin. Not all of them, he admits, voice rough, but enough. The admission hangs between them, sharp as a blade's edge. She wants to ask more. How many were lost, how deep the sorcerer's rot spreads. But the forest answers first. A howl, too melodic to be a wolf's, splits the morning air. Halvar is moving before the last note fades. Run, the land blurs beneath them, their path a frantic zigzag through birch and bramble. The hounds don't sound like pursuers. They sound like a storm closing in, their voices harmonizing in a chorus that raises the hair on Elara's neck. Halvar veers west suddenly, toward the rushing Bruinen. The river, he gasps, only way to break the scent. The water is ice and fury, its current snatching at their legs as they wade in. Elara stumbles, the star's weight threatening to drag her under, but Halvar hauls her upright, his arm a vise around her waist. They emerge shivering on the far bank, the hound's cries now distant, confused, but the reprieve is fleeting. Halvar's gaze locks onto something upstream, a glint of metal among the trees. Archers, they crash through the undergrowth, arrows hissing past like angry wasps. One grazes Elara's shoulder, the sting of it sharp and bright. Rivendell's borders are close. She can almost taste the crisp, clean air of the hidden valley, but the sorcerer's net is tightening. Halvar pulls her behind a fallen oak, his breath hot against her ear. When I say, sprint for the bridge, don't look back, she clutches the star through the satchel's fabric, its warmth seeping into her palm. The promise of safety, of answers, lies just beyond the next rise. But the cost, that's a shadow stretching longer with every step. The archers are circling. The hounds are regrouping, and the sorcerer's voice still lingers in her mind, whispering of power just within reach, if she's brave enough to grasp it. Halvar's hand tightens on her arm. Now, Rivendell's air hums with the weight of ages, each breeze carrying whispers of lost songs and older sorrows. Lord Elrond's study is a sanctuary of parchment and candlelight, the shelves lined with tomes whose spines bear scars from centuries of careful hands. Yet even here, beneath the vaulted arches that have sheltered kings and scholars, the Star of Elendil casts a pall. Its light, though muffled by leather and cloth, seems to pulse in time with Elara's quickening breath. She unfurls the scroll with hands that betray her exhaustion, the ink blurring where sweat has smudged it. The texts speak of its power to heal, she says, voice fraying at the edges. But the sorcerer, he sees only a weapon. Elrond's fingers trace the runes without touching them, as if the very parchment might burn. All light casts shadows, child, he murmurs. His eyes, older than the ruins they've fled, hold a grief too vast for words. The star was forged to mend, yes, but in these hands, a pause, the fire cracks, sending embers spiraling toward the rafters. Even starlight can blind. Halvar shifts by the window, his silhouette sharp against the twilight. Then we hide it, he says flatly, bury it where none can reach. But the hollowness in his tone betrays him, he knows as well as they do. Secrets have a way of rotting through their vaults. Elara's nails bite into her palms. And when the sorcerer turns his gaze elsewhere, when villages burn for want of a tool we hoarded, the question hangs, unanswered. A knock. The door swings open to reveal Gandalf, his staff glinting with the last of the sunset. You speak as if the choice is yours alone. He chides gently, though his gaze is flint. The star does not belong to scholars, or rangers, or even to elves. He steps forward, and the room seems to tilt not with magic, but with the gravity of what he's implying. It belongs to those who still believe in dawn. Elrond exhales long and slow. Then we call the council. Rohan, Gondor, the dwarves of Erebor. His gaze flicks to Halvar, then away, even those who have earned their distrust. Outside, the first stars prick the sky. Somewhere beyond the valley, The hounds are howling. Elara clutches the satchel to her chest, the artifact's warmth seeping through the fabric like a heartbeat. The path ahead is fractured, every alliance a gamble, every silence a potential betrayal. But as the wind stirs the leaves outside, carrying with it the scent of rain and distant smoke, one truth becomes unbearably clear. Dawn has never demanded certainty, only courage. The dwarven outpost clings to the mountainside like a scar, its gates wrought from black iron and older grudges. Halvar's breath fogs in the thin air as he approaches, his boots scattering pebbles that skitter down the slope. Too loud, too careless. The archers hidden in the crags already have arrows nocked. He feels their gazes like knife points between his shoulder blades. Durin's stone fist waits at the threshold, his beard threaded with silver and old bloodstains, his arms crossed over a chest plate dented by battles Halvar once fought beside him. Ranger, the dwarf rumbles, the word a boulder dropped between them. Last I saw you, you were walking away. What brings you back? Halvar doesn't flinch. He's had years to rehearse this moment, but the words still taste of ash. The sorcerer's reach grows. He's digging up old weapons, twisting them. He nods to Elara, who steps forward with the satchel. The star's glow seeps through the leather, painting Durin's scars in fleeting sapphire. The dwarf's laugh is short, bitter, and you've brought his next prize to my doorstep. His axe shifts in his grip, the edge catching the low sun. Convince me this isn't another of your doomed causes. Elara moves before Halvar can speak, unrolling the scroll with a scholar's precision. The star was forged to heal, she says, her voice steady despite the dwarves' glares. But the sorcerer's minions are hunting it, and us. We need allies who remember what it was to stand against the dark. Durin's eyes narrow. He knows the script on that parchment, knows the hands that once penned it. The silence stretches, taut as a bowstring, until the first arrow strikes the gate with a sound like a bell tolling. The attack comes in a wave of snarls and snapping jaws, the hounds leaping from the rocks with teeth bared. Halvar's sword meets the nearest beast midair, its black blood spraying across the stones. Durin bellows orders, his warriors forming a wall of shields and swinging axes. Elara's dagger finds a hound's throat, but another lunges only to be split down the middle by Durin's strike. The dwarf spits, persuasive. He grunts, yanking his blade free. When the last foe falls, the outpost courtyard is littered with twisted corpses and heaving breaths. Halvar wipes his sword on a tattered cloak, his knuckles white around the hilt. Durin studies him, then the star's glow still peeking from Elara's satchel. You fight like a man with something to prove, the dwarf mutters. Halvar meets his gaze. I am. The gates creak open wider, not an embrace, not forgiveness, but a grudging step toward shared ground. Durin's voice is rough as gravel as he turns away. Eat, rest. We move at first light. The words are practical, but the glance he throws Halvar carries the weight of old battles and older debts. Some wounds never fully close, but sometimes they are the only maps you have left. The scouts' boots pound against the war-torn earth as they burst into the council chamber, their cloaks streaked with mud and something darker, something that clings like the scent of damp ashes. The Gladden fields, the first gasps, his voice raw from days without rest. They move like a shadow across the land. Thousands. The words ripple through the room, a cold current beneath the candlelight. Halvar's hand tightens around his dagger hilt, but it's Elara who feels the true weight of the moment. The star in her grasp thrums as if answering some unseen call, its light flickering between sapphire and a sickly, feverish green. She doesn't need the scout's maps to know where the sorcerer's forces march. The visions come unbidden now, crashing over her like a tide. Armies clashing beneath skies, choked with smoke, rivers running red, and always, that same glint of silver at the heart of the chaos. The star's true purpose, or its corruption, she can't tell. The artifact burns against her palms, its pulse syncing with her heartbeat, each thud sending another fractured image searing through her mind. A fortress crumbling, a child's outstretched hand, Halvar's face, streaked with blood and something worse, resignation. Durin slams his tankard onto the table, ale sloshing over the rim. If we wait for Gondor's reply, we'll be burying our dead in that mire instead of fighting on it. His beard quivers with barely contained fury, but his eyes flick to Elara, to the star's erratic glow. He knows what they all do. Time is a blade at their throats. Elara closes her eyes, willing the visions to cohere into clarity. The star's power hums through her veins, whispering in a language just beyond comprehension. It's not just a tool, it's alive and it's hungry. The realization sends a shiver down her spine. Every legend spoke of its light as a beacon, a healer, but nothing warned of the cost. What if the sorcerer isn't twisting it? What if he's simply the first to listen? Gandalf's staff taps the floor, the sound like a bell tolling in deep water. The star answers to will, not want. He murmurs, his gaze heavy on Elara. You seek to command it. Perhaps you should first understand what it commands of you. Outside, the wind rises, howling through Rivendell's arches like a chorus of lost voices. The scouts shift uneasily. Even the dwarves glance at the windows. Dawn is still hours away, but the sky already churns with storm clouds, unnaturally swift, unnaturally dark. The sorcerer's work. Halvar steps closer to Elara, his shoulder brushing hers. No words, just presence. A reminder, she's not alone in this. The star's light flares, sudden and searing, painting the room in stark relief. For a heartbeat, Elara sees it. The battlefield, the choice, the moment where everything fractures. Then the vision snaps away, leaving only the artifact's heat and a terrible certainty. The storm isn't coming, it's here, and she's standing at its eye. The mist coils around their ankles like living things, swallowing sound and sight, until the battlefield becomes a nightmare of half-glimpsed shapes and muffled screams. Elara's palms blister where the star burns against her skin, its light a searing blue-white that cuts through the gloom, but every pulse of radiance exacts its price. The pain is a living thing now, gnawing up her arms with teeth of fire, yet she grits her teeth and raises the artifact higher. Shadows shriek and dissolve where its glow touches, the sorcerer's wraiths recoiling like scorched spiders. For a heartbeat, the allied lines hold, then the tide of darkness surges anew. Halvar moves like a man possessed, his sword carving arcs through the mist where the wraiths thicken. He doesn't speak, doesn't need to. Every step he takes is a bulwark between her and the advancing dark. Every parry a promise, but even rangers have limits. Elara sees the moment it happens, the wraith that slips past his guard, its clawed fingers raking across his ribs, sees the way his knees buckle, just for an instant, before he forces himself upright. Blood soaks his tunic, black in the eerie half-light. Still, he fights. The star's pulse stutters suddenly, its light dimming to a sickly green. Elara gasps as the visions slam into her, 1,000 fractured moments of ruin, of the artifact's power turned inward, devouring its wielder from within. The sorcerer's laughter curls through her mind, velvet and venom. You see now, little scholar, light and shadow are but two sides of the same blade. She staggers, the weight of the star dragging her to her knees. Halvar's shout is raw with fury. He cleaves through 3 wraiths in as many strokes, his boots kicking up clods of earth as he charges toward her, but the mist thickens between them, clotting like ink in water. A wraith materializes at his flank, then another. Elara watches, helpless, as they drag him down. His sword glints once more before disappearing beneath the swarm. The world narrows to the sound of her own heartbeat, to the star's heat searing through her veins. Despair is a cold hand at her throat, whispering of futility, of endings. But then, through the haze of pain, a memory surfaces. Gandalf's voice, steady as stone. The star answers to will, not want. Elara closes her eyes, breathes, and chooses. The explosion of light tears the mist asunder, a shockwave of radiance ripping outward from her hands. Wraiths evaporate mid-snarl. The very air shudders with the force of it. When the glare fades, the battlefield lies scorched and silent save for one figure, crumpled in the trampled grass. Halvar doesn't stir as she reaches him. His breath is shallow, his skin gray as old parchment, but his fingers twitch when she presses the star to his wound. Its light, gentler now, tempered, threading through him like golden thread. The cost is immediate. Her vision tunnels, her limbs leaden. Yet as his eyelids flutter open, as his calloused hand finds hers, the trade feels almost fair. The mist is gone, but the war, that's only just begun. The star's final pulse tears through Elara like lightning splitting a tree, white hot, all-consuming. For one blinding moment, she isn't a scholar clutching an artifact. She is the conduit, the crucible, the living spark that sears the sorcerer's spirit from the world. His scream isn't sound but silence, a vacuum that swallows the very air before collapsing inward. Then, stillness, the kind that comes after storms, after avalanches, after the last note of a funeral dirge fades. Halvar lies motionless beside her, his breath shallow as a winter creek. The star's glow gutters in her hands, its light reduced to embers, still warm, still whispering, but diminished. She presses it to his chest anyway, her fingers trembling against the ragged tear in his tunic. The wound doesn't close, not fully, just enough to keep the darkness at bay. Just enough to remind her, power always exacts its toll. Around them, the battlefield is a graveyard of scattered armor and melted frost. No crows circle. No wind stirs the trampled grass. Even the mist seems to hold its breath. Elara's knees sink into the mud, her cloak sodden with blood, some hers, some not. The weight of what she's done crashes down, not in a wave, but in slow, suffocating increments. The star could have healed villages, could have mended the land. Now its light is a sputtering candle, and the cost of victory sits heavy in her palms. A groan cuts through the silence. Halvar's fingers twitch toward his sword, his eyelids fluttering like wounded moths. Did we? His voice is gravel and broken glass. Elara doesn't answer. She doesn't need to. The hollow ache in her chest is answer enough. The sorcerer is gone. The battle is won, but as she stares at the star's fading pulse, at the way its light struggles to pierce the gathering dusk, one truth coils around her heart. Some victories feel too much like loss. Halvar's hand finds hers, his grip weak but certain. The unspoken words hang between them. What now? Where does the road lead when the light you fought for is spent? The star flickers once more, a heartbeat of radiance against the coming dark. Then, like a sigh, it stills, but the night at least is quiet. Rivendell's healing halls are thick with the scent of Athelas and old parchment, the air hushed as if the very walls are holding their breath. Elara's fingers, once deft with scrolls and ink, now move with the careful precision of a novice healer as she presses a damp cloth to Halvar's brow. His skin is still too pale, the wound at his ribs, an angry line of stitches beneath the bandages, but his chest rises and falls steadily, a small mercy. The star's last act was enough to keep death at bay, though not enough to erase the scars, not all of them. Across the room, the artifact rests on a pedestal of moonlit silver, its surface dull and cracked like a dying ember. Lord Elrond's hands hover over it, his expression unreadable. Even spent, its power lingers, he murmurs, sealed away, yes, but not silent. The words settle over Elara like a shroud. She remembers the way the star had whispered to her in those final moments, how its voice had been both plea and command. "You are mine now," it had seemed to say. "As I am yours." Halvar's fingers brush hers, pulling her back. His grip is weak but deliberate, his calluses rough against her skin. "You're brooding," he rasps, the ghost of a smirk tugging at his lips. Worse than dwarves after a barrel's run dry. The joke is a frayed thread of the man he was before the battle, but it's enough. Elara exhales, turning her palm to lace her fingers with his. "Someone has to," she replies, nodding to the bandages. "You're hardly in fighting form." The fire crackles, casting long shadows that dance across the shelves of ancient tomes. Elrond steps closer, his robes whispering against the stone. "Darkness scatters, child," he says softly, but it does not vanish. The sorcerer was a symptom, not the source. His gaze lingers on the star, then on Elara. "You've walked the edge of something older than kingdoms. That leaves marks no herb can mend." She knows he's right. The weight of the star's secrets sits heavy in her bones, its whispers now woven into her dreams. She's no longer the scholar who left the safety of libraries and lamplight. She's the keeper of a truth, too dangerous to speak aloud. Halvar's thumb traces the back of her hand, a silent question. She meets his eyes and sees the same understanding there. They've crossed a threshold. There's no going back. Outside, the first stars of evening pierce the twilight. Somewhere beyond the valley, the world stirs wounded, wary, but alive. Elara tightens her grip on Halvar's hand, her other palm resting against the satchel at her hip. The scroll inside is blank now, its ink faded to nothing. A fresh page, a new story, and this time she won't be writing it alone. A fresh parchment lies unrolled across the weathered tavern table, its blank surface a silent challenge as Elara dips her quill into the inkwell. The scent of pine resin and old books clings to her sleeves, a lingering reminder of Rivendell's halls. But the road has carved new calluses onto her fingers, new lines onto the map spread beside her. Halvar leans over her shoulder, his shadow blending with the flickering candlelight as he taps a valley marked only by dwarven runes, the archives of Thror. He murmurs, "If any place holds answers about what the sorcerer awakened, it's there." His voice is steadier now, though the wound beneath his tunic still pulls tight with every breath. The storyteller by the hearth catches Elara's eye, their knowing smile half hidden beneath a hood. The tale of the star and the sorcerer already spins through the tavern, woven into the fabric of Middle-earth's legends. But stories like firelight cast deceptive shadows. Beyond the circle of warmth, beyond the laughter and clinking tankards, the night hums with something older than fear. A whisper of wind through cracks in forgotten doors, a rustle like parchment turning in a sealed tomb. Their journey won't be like before, no single artifact to chase, no clear enemy to outrun. This time, they hunt knowledge itself, the frayed threads of history that might warn of the next storm gathering in the dark. Elara's quill hovers, then sweeps across the page, tracing their route through mountains that bite the sky and forests, where the trees remember the first age. Halvar's hand covers hers, guiding the nib eastward. "The dwarves won't welcome us," he warns. "Not after Durin's death. She doesn't flinch, then we'll earn it." The words taste like resolve. Outside, an owl's cry splits the silence too sharp, too close. Halvar's dagger is in his hand before the candle gutters. But the night offers no foe, only the sigh of leaves and the distant glint of stars, veiled by gathering clouds. Elara rolls the map with deliberate care, tucking it into her satchel beside the blank scrolls, waiting to be filled. The fire pops, sending embers spiraling toward the rafters. Somewhere, in the spaces between waking and dream, the star's dying pulse echoes. The storyteller's voice rises then, spinning a new thread into their tale, one of a scholar and a ranger walking into the teeth of the unknown. The listeners lean in, cups forgotten in their hands, but as the flames dance, painting their faces in gold and black, no one notices the shadow that lingers at the edge of the light. No one sees the way it tilts its head, as if listening. The road calls, the night watches, and the real story, that's just beginning. The fire burns low, its embers collapsing into glowing whispers as the storyteller's final words settle over the gathered listeners like a veil of twilight. The night air hums with the weight of tales half-spoken, of endings that blur into beginnings. Around the dying flames, faces tilt upward, not toward the storyteller now, but toward the stars, as if searching for the threads of the story still unwritten. Elara's cloak rustles as she shifts in the saddle, the worn fabric whispering against leather and steel. The road ahead is a ribbon of dust and shadow, winding eastward where the mountains gnaw at the horizon. Halvar rides beside her, his silhouette sharp against the bruised hues of dusk, his gaze fixed on some distant point only he can see. They don't speak. There's no need. The silence between them is its own language, forged in battles fought and secrets carried. Behind them, the murmur of the tavern fades, replaced by the creak of saddle leather and the steady rhythm of hooves on packed earth. The storyteller's voice may have stilled, but the tale hasn't ended, not truly. Some stories don't conclude with a clash of swords or a crown upon a brow. Some simply unfold, like a map left open to the wind, its edges fraying into the unknown. The first star of evening flickers to life, overhead, a pinprick of light in the deepening blue. Elara's fingers brush the satchel at her hip, where the blank scrolls wait like unspoken promises. The star's light may be spent, but its echoes linger, not in the artifact itself, but in the questions it left behind. Who was the sorcerer before the darkness took him? What other relics lie buried beneath the world's skin, waiting for hands foolish or brave enough to unearth them? Halvar's horse nickers softly, tossing its head as if scenting something on the breeze. He doesn't reach for his sword, not yet, but his shoulders tense, the way they do when the world feels too still, too quiet. Elara knows that tension. It's the same prickle at the back of her own neck, the same instinct that whispers, the road is watching. Ahead, the path forks, one branch diving into the thick pines, the other climbing toward the high passes. No sign marks the way, no bard's song warns of what lies beyond, just the rustle of leaves and the distant cry of a night bird, its voice sharp as a blade drawn from its sheath. Elara smiles, small and private, as she nudges her horse eastward. Some tales end at hearths and hallowed halls. Others begin in the dark, with nothing but a borrowed dagger and a name spoken too softly to hear. The stars wheel overhead, indifferent and ancient. Beneath them, two riders vanish into the gathering dark, their shadows stretching long behind them, not as fugitives, not as heroes, but as something else entirely. Keepers of the unwritten, listeners to the wind. Dust drifts through the slanting beams of sunlight that pierce the archive's crumbling roof, each mote swirling like a ghost of the past. The seeker's fingers tremble as they brush the cracked leather of the journal, its spine creaking like a door left unopened for centuries. The ink has faded, but the words still breathe. Elara's careful script, recounting the star's last flicker, the weight of its silence, the way the world shuddered when the sorcerer fell. Yet it's the margins that catch the light, sketches of constellations no scholar recognizes, fragments of a melody scribbled between entries, and a single phrase, repeated like a prayer. The light isn't gone. It's waiting. The journal slips from the seeker's grasp, falling open to a page near the end. Here, the ink is darker, the letters hurried, as if written by a hand that knew time was short. The dwarves of Khazad-dûm spoke of a vault beneath the roots of the Misty Mountains. Elara's voice seems to whisper from the parchment, a place where things forgotten are kept safe. Or kept hidden. Beneath the passage, a map unfolds in delicate strokes, its landmarks worn but legible. A cleft in the rock like a wolf's maw, a river that bends twice upon itself, and at the center, a star-shaped cavern no mortal cartographer has ever charted. A gust stirs the dust, carrying the scent of damp stone and something old or myrrh, perhaps, or the faint metallic tang of a storm on the wind. The seeker's breath hitches. They've heard the tavern tales, the songs that claim the star's power was spent. But songs, like shadows, often hide more than they reveal. Outside, the first stars pierce the twilight, their light sharp enough to cut glass. Somewhere beyond the archive's sagging shelves, a door groans on rusted hinges. Or maybe it's the mountain itself, sighing as another seeker takes up the old quest. The journal's final page is blank save for a single line, the ink so fresh it might have dried yesterday. Tell them the night is long, but the dawn is ours to write. The seeker touches the words, half expecting warmth. Instead, the parchment hums, not with magic, but with something quieter, fiercer, hope. The archive's keeper materializes from the shadows, his lantern painting the walls in gold and black. "You'll want supplies," he says, nodding to the journal, "and a good dagger." His smile is a knife's edge. The road eats the unprepared. Beyond the windows, the wind rises, carrying the scent of pine and distant rain. Somewhere in the dark, a wolf howls, or perhaps it's just the wind, shaping itself into a warning. The seeker tucks the journal into their coat, its weight familiar already, like a heartbeat against their ribs. The star's legacy isn't lost. It's simply been waiting for the right hands, the right night, and the night, as always, is patient. The wind carries the echoes of the storyteller's voice into the darkness, where new adventures wait, unseen but ever present, in the heart of Middle-earth's eternal night. Beneath the sighing branches of ancient forests and the watchful gaze of crumbling ruins, the land itself seems to breathe, holding its secrets close, yet whispering them to those who know how to listen. Every rustle of leaves, every distant howl, every flicker of starlight through the clouds is a thread in the tapestry of tales yet to be told. Somewhere beyond the firelight's reach, a lone rider pauses on a moonlit ridge, their cloak billowing like a shadow given form. The road ahead is unmarked, the map in their hands frayed at the edges from too many turnings. They don't look back. The past is a weight they've learned to carry lightly, but the future, that's a door left deliberately ajar. Behind them, the wind stirs the grass into murmurs, as if the earth itself is sharing a secret too soft for mortal ears. And in the quiet spaces between waking and dream, where the veil between worlds grows thin, the old powers stir, not with the fury of storms or the clamor of battle, but with the patience of stones and the persistence of roots cracking through bedrock. The sorcerer is gone, but the shadows he danced with still linger, restless and hungry. They coil around forgotten altars, seep into the cracks of abandoned towers, and flicker at the edges of vision, always watching, always waiting. Yet for all the darkness, there are embers that refuse to fade. A child's laughter in a village that shouldn't have survived the winter. A blade reforged from broken steel. A song hummed under the breath of a traveler with eyes too old for their face. These are the things the night hasn't swallowed, the things it never will. The storyteller's fire may have burned low, but the stories themselves, they are alive. They always have been. And somewhere in the hush before dawn, a new voice picks up the thread, not with a shout, but with a whisper. The kind that carries, the kind that sticks, because the night may be long, but it's never silent, and the next tale is already beginning.